So when it comes to that space, so we've talked a lot about your eating habits and having more of that high frequency, that natural plant-based element into your space, getting rid of like dairy or whatever that's not going to serve your body the right way. If someone's wanting to step into taking more herbs, right? What do you say? Like, what do you suggest and looking for when it comes to, say, someone wants to start taking turmeric in a capsule, right? I mean, you can go to Walmart or you can go to Costco, you can go to a Whole Food store. Like, how do you decide, or what's your biggest tip for someone who's just wanting to get started and like the best, you could say the best options, because like,
Mhm.
especially when you have a tea, when you have a loose leaf tea versus when you buy it already pre-bagged, the loose leaf tea, you're going to get way more of the benefits versus an already made tea bag.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. And a lot of that has to do with the packaging and they have to heat press those bags around the herbs and then you lose some of the nutrients. So it's definitely fresh is always going to be the best. Jen, it really depends on where you live.
Hmm.
If you live in a city that has, multiple health food stores, herb shops, like a list, it's going to be a lot easier. But having said that, now we're at a day and age where you can order almost anything online. So,
Right.
like the Dr. Christopher's formulas, those are what I prefer to use because, yes, I do use some single herbs in a single form, but I see how much more powerful herbs work in conjunction with other herbs. So I'm
Hmm.
always using formulas, and that would consist of anywhere from 5 to 20 plus herbs. I mean, there's a few of Dr. Christopher's, like his Vital Herbs is full of herbs because it's the full spectrum. It's every single vitamin and mineral that your body needs. And trust me, it needs a lot. So it really depends on where you live. And it's looking at what is organic or wild crafted. We're kind of at a time where wild crafting is getting more rare. And that's because it's so regulated because we need to protect these plants. So the large majority of whatever you would buy, like if you just want, like you said, just the straight up turmeric, it's finding, and most health food stores have turmeric because that's a really popular one. So it's
Hmm.
not something that you might have to specifically go to an herb shop that would have. Turmeric is like cayenne pepper. It's going to be really easy to find. So it's just making sure that it is from an organic source. And the reason why that is so important is because, first of all, it doesn't have any pesticides sprayed on it, which not only kills the nutrients in the plant, but it kills the nutrients in the soil. So the plant is growing in soil that isn't richly packed with nutrients. Therefore, that herb, that specific plant, isn't going to have enough vitamins and minerals and nutrients. And the whole point of buying these herbs are for their medicinal properties. So organic, wild crafted, that's huge. And just researching and looking, if you have an herb shop close by, that's always best, because you are going to need more than just what a typical health food store is going to carry. And like I said, I use Dr. Christopher's, and you can order his on Amazon. There's multiple places, but I would say Amazon is the best source for Dr. Christopher's specifically.
Hmm.
And they have all of them on there. It's not like you can only get just a few of them. So, yeah, does that help?
Yeah, no, that's perfect. I think that's good to think about in that aspect too, because there's so much out there, especially when it comes to like eating more vegan based or not, or what kind of supplements or when to take them, the best options. I feel like there's so much noise in the world that you can
Mm-hmm.
get so caught up in like, oh, this is the new fad, right? Like the keto diet or whatever it is, that it's almost like there's benefits to different things, but also everyone's body, I feel, is different. And so it can be easy. And this is what I struggle with, is it can be so easy to get like caught up in like, okay, everyone says this is a really good supplement, so I need to take it. But then it's like, but is that really what my body needs? So it can be very easy for, I think, just in general, people who are interested, to get like all of the noise outside to kind of like cloud everything over. So it would be good for people to work, I guess, with someone like you who has that knowledge to help give that basis. So then they know, kind of where to get started at.
Yeah, and I think another really, really important aspect when you are choosing the right supplements for you, and it's the reason why I brought up the Dr. Christopher's formulas, is because for the most part, if you go to a health food store, you're going to see a whole row of herbal formulas and tinctures and remedies and things. And it's like, how do you know what's good and what's not? Whether it's organic or not organic, it may not necessarily be the right pick. So here's how you can decipher between a good product and a not good product. If you look at the ingredients on the back and you see a breakdown of the vitamins, the minerals, folic acid, any of those things, it is full of isolated chemicals, meaning that you do not have the plants in their whole form in that formula, even if there's one or two. If there's a breakdown at all of vitamin E in the percentage, vitamin D, vitamin A, vitamin C, any of that, it is a product that has isolated chemicals. And when you use isolated chemicals, they have to come with a preservative. So when you look at a product, you want to be reading nothing but the plants. Alfalfa, shave grass, lobelia, cayenne pepper, spirulina, nutritional yeast, like the list goes on. That is the only thing that you should read in the ingredients. And that's how you know a solid product that is a whole food for your body, because your body can't assimilate isolated chemicals, because your body needs, like, for example, calcium needs 6 other minerals just to be absorbed. And it isn't just magnesium. The calcium magnesium over the counter became so popular because scientists actually figured out that your body needs magnesium, but it isn't the only one. And the only way that you can get calcium in an organic form that your body can literally take in all the nutrients and expel the rest is in herbs like alfalfa or red raspberry leaf. That's extremely high. Different herbs like that, shave grass, super high, oat straw. So
I would have never known that.
Yeah, that's really helpful because so many people are into taking the isolated chemicals, especially right now with COVID. Now a big one is vitamin D. People want to be taking all those vitamin D supplements, but the problem is they're taking an isolated chemical, which actually depletes your body of that very mineral and others, because it actually has to store it in the weak areas of the body because it can't expel it, because you're using isolated chemicals and preservatives. So it's really important to make sure that you're only reading plants in their whole form in the ingredients. There will never be a breakdown of any of the vitamins and minerals unless there are isolated chemicals and preservatives.
That is fascinating. And that is such good advice. I have like different vitamins. I even have Dr. Christopher's. I have a couple of those things, but I'm like even looking at all of that while you're talking. I'm like, oh, that's so interesting. I never knew that.
Yeah,
that is good advice.
It is. It's a game changer because yes, there are other good products out there besides Dr. Christopher's, obviously, but now you'll be able to decipher between those. Usually when you're dealing with a tincture, I would say 90% of the time they're legit as long as they're organic, because they are just those herbs in either like a vegetable glycerin base or an alcohol base. It's the capsules and the gels and those different things that you really have to look at the ingredients and see what you are consuming. Because, like, for example, I had a client, it was probably like 10 years ago. She came to the consultation with a whole bag of all these over-the-counter supplements, vitamin C, vitamin E, vitamin D, like you name it. And I took her off every single one overnight, and her body went through like a week-long detox where she felt like she had the flu. And she was almost going to give up. And I said, trust me, this is your body just detoxing. And she stuck with it. And then after she went through that detox, and while she was going through the detox, she was supporting her body by taking the vital herbs, which is Dr. Christopher's multivitamin, which is amazing. and a liver herb to help support her liver, to help detoxify the toxins without holding on to them. So by that end of the week, she could see the difference in how she felt with, from taking those over the counter to the whole supplements.
That
So
is crazy.
it's crazy. Yeah. And calcium really builds up. That's how you get kidney stones, is from inorganic calcium. That comes from your supplements that you take and from your water, depending on where you live. There can be calcium in your water, and that gives people kidney stones. Isn't that crazy?
Wow.
Yeah.
And it depletes your body of calcium, and you need calcium for like almost every function in your body. It's pretty amazing. That's why it's probably the number one that gets depleted with people. It's a very common deficiency in men and women.
Which is funny because they always hear, I don't ever drink milk, but they always are like, you need to drink your milk because it has the calcium. And
Yep.
it's so funny because that's like something that you've been told since you were little, but of course it might not be the best kind of calcium to be getting. I don't know. I don't know much about that. All I know is that I don't really drink dairy milk, but it's interesting that even at a young age, like you're just naturally taught that in society, but then not necessarily taught the best way to get it. It's
Absolutely.
interesting.
And Americans consume the most dairy out of any country in the world, and we have the highest osteoporosis rate out of any country.
Wow.
So that really tells you something. And I think a lot more people, especially the last 10 years, have gotten away from that idea that dairy gives you calcium and builds your bones. Like that was definitely in the 90s. I think we've gotten to a point now, which is good,
Yeah.
that we're moving out of that. There's some people, yes, that still absolutely think that way. But I think a lot of people, especially over time, have seen, no, actually, it does cause calcium deficiency. And you see through your body giving you the red flags. Like I said, the hemorrhoids when you're pregnant, varicose veins, all these things to osteoporosis, it's not normal. That's not a normal part of aging. And that's your body telling you that there's a serious deficiency. So, yeah, it's really reprogramming and doing some unlearning.
It really is. I remember too, like when I had the staph infection, and I've always been very much into vegetarianism, and I explored herbs off and on, but I had pulled away from it. And around that time, you and I became friends, and I ended up contracting the staph infection from the hospital and from a visitation from one of our family members. And so off and on in my body, it will flare up if I get something that come up for me that's super stressful or shocking. Usually it's like something that I just get out of left field that usually will trigger it. But I remember when I came to you, it's like, okay, I have the staph infection. I'm getting ready to go to urgent care to get on antibiotic, which is going to take, that 10 days to 2 weeks of antibiotic. And then I'm going to have, of course, the natural bacteria that's going to be down. I'll probably get a bladder infection. And it's just a series of events that usually come after taking that. And you're like, do you trust me? And I said, yes. And you said, okay, I want you to try this. And this is going to hurt like hell.
Yeah.
But she's like, I want you to make a garlic and olive oil concoction at home. And I want you to put it on that staph infection. She goes, I want you to promise me that you're going to do this for 24 hours. And I want you to see what happens. And I remember when I took that leap of faith and I went into trusting herbs and trusting you as a wise woman to take on this. It was like a big leap of faith. It was like a reprogramming of my mind, because I was used to doing things a certain way. But it didn't take 24 hours. Within 24 hours, it was almost gone off of my finger. And I remember thinking, my gosh, I would have been on those antibiotics for 10 days and I wouldn't have even seen this kind of result probably for about 4 days. Plus, staph infection is excruciatingly painful and dangerous. And to see that kind of result in such a short period of time, again, just not only did I feel tremendous gratitude to you and for you being brave enough to really say, look at me, listen to me, trust me. Are you going to listen? Yes. But also it reconnected me to the power of Mother Earth and what she can give us. And it just kind of, again, just shifted this relationship So anyway, sometimes when people, are doing this, it can just feel really scary. It is a form of reprogramming, but these are plants, these are herbs. This was made for us. And we do need to take those leaps of faith and hit the herbs as hard as the symptoms. That was the other thing that you really just emphasized to me. It was like, don't pay attention to the back. You need to hit the herbs as hard as your symptoms. And that was a huge game changer for me.
Yeah. Wow. And thank you for reminding me of that, Candace, because that is where a lot of people fall short when they take the herbs, is they get all the perfect right things, but then they read the label on the back. So the label on the back is considered a tonic dose, which means you don't have any symptoms. You're just taking it for a maintenance. So it's always going to be really low. It's going to be like 1 to 2 dropperfuls, or if it's a tincture, or if it's capsules, 1 to 2 capsules twice a day or something. Okay. So when I have an ailment, I gauge on a scale of 1 to 10. So we'll use Candace's for an example, staph. That's a 10. Okay. That's really bad. You don't want to mess with staph. So I had her putting those herbs on every 20 minutes, 30 minutes. Like, she was just consistently hitting it. And that's what you have to do to be able to kill whatever you have going on. And another good point that you mentioned is how fast it went away, because it came on really fast. So another gauge for me to know if I'm on the right track is that if something acute comes on with my kids and it's not going away at all within 12, 24 hours, I'm missing something. Anything that comes on acute is going to go away fast. Anything that's chronic is going to take longer. So I would always gauge when I was kind of going through this learning process with my kids of like exactly what they can eat and not eat, especially when they're sick, and exactly how much of what herbs need to be used, because really within 48 hours, no matter what you have going on, it should be cleared up, and you should not see further complications like pneumonia. Like pneumonia happens from neglecting a cold, which means that you basically get a cold, you have, the stuffy nose, sore throat, whatever, but you're still eating your chocolate milkshake after dinner and eating pastas, gluten, artificial sugars, things like that. Dairy is probably the worst culprit, especially when it comes to mucus in the body. But then your cold now gets complicated because you're just feeding your body full of mucus and it's trying to rid of mucus. So now it's going to cake your lungs, causing pneumonia. So, for example, so it should never turn into stuff like that. That's when you know that you're missing something. You're either eating something still that you shouldn't be, or you're not taking the herbs and hitting it hard enough. But usually I would say 99.9% of the time, it's something that you're eating, because your food does really, it is the most crucial aspect of this whole change of lifestyle. Is it always is going to come down to your diet, because it's easy to take the capsules, or the tinctures, or it's that reprogramming of what you're going to eat for breakfast, lunch, and dinner, and snacks in between. And if you're stressed out, or if you're bored watching a movie, like rethinking what we're eating. So
wonderful. Food is thy medicine, right?
Yes.